Okay, so everybody can see my screen, the one that I share, and then everybody can also hear me well, no problem, right? Okay, I think I have greet anybody, right? There is nobody that I forget to greet this morning. Okay, so now we are on the week 5. So in the week 5, we will move into the heat transport. So the heat transport is, in a way, will be much more simplified than momentum transport. Okay, but anyway, we will go and carry on, and we will discuss a little bit on the slides, and then we will discuss one example on the heat transport as well. So for the heat transport, we will go into the thermal conductivity and mechanisms of the heat transport. So as you know, in the real nature, some materials will conduct the heat readily. So for example, if you go into the kitchen, then you will use a pan that is made from the metal because they conduct heat readily. Okay, and some other materials such as the wood, if you hit them, then they will not basically be hot. So there is a difference in terms of the property of these two solid materials. One is called as a conductor. The other one is a insulator, basically. Now, the physical property that describes the rate at which the heat is conducted is called the thermal conductivity. And conductivity can be transferred using different mechanisms. The first one is the molecular heat transport. And then there is a convective heat transport. So the molecular heat transport is involving a molecular motion, whereas the convective heat transport is involving a bulk flow of fluid. Okay. And in the equations, the convective heat transport is represented by the density term. So the density term always comes out when you describe the convective heat transport. And then you also have a diffusive heat transport, and then also a radiative heat transport. Okay, so for our discussions from the week 5 until the week 8, we only interested with the molecular and the convective heat transport. Okay, we will not discuss more on the diffusive and the radiative heat transport. So you consider that you have two slabs of a parallel plate. So you remember when we discussed this in the week 2, we also have two parallel plates, but the bottom plate is basically moved at the velocity v. Okay, so for the heat transport, we revisit the same parallel plates again. Okay, but except this time we don't move anything, but the parallel plates at the bottom instead is being heated at a time t equals 0 to a higher temperature than the initial temperature. So the initial temperature is T0. So when we talk about the initial temperature, the T0 in here, when there is no heat, no nothing, all the temperature are basically the temperature across the slabs. Okay, the function as a functions of y from this to here will be same at T0. Okay, so that one is something that we call T0. Then at a particular time of t equals 0, you bring up suddenly the parallel plates on the bottom, you contacted it with the hot plate. Okay, so if you go to the lab and you know that there is some of you will stir or will hit the beaker filled with the liquid, okay, then using a hot plate. So when you hit the plate on the bottom at a higher temperature called T1, then there will be an increase in the temperature profile. So suddenly at this particular point, it will be T1. Okay, so when you keep on waiting as a function of time, then you see that the temperature gradient will form along your slab in here, the solid slab. Okay, so in the beginning will be like this, and then it will go like this, and then it will go like this. Then at a particular time, you will have a parallel temperature gradient that extends from T1 up to T0, because the parallel plate on the top in here is not heated, so it stays at the temperature T0. Okay, so note that in this particular systems, we take the directions as x and y. So x is going in the directions, y is going into the directions, and if we have a z which we don't show in here, that will go into the other direction. That is basically perpendicular to me. Okay, so that will be the directions. Now, what we can derive in the same respect with Newton's law of viscosity is that the heat flux, or the Q in here is basically the we describe this, or we represent this in terms of the joule, okay, per second, okay, divided by the area. The area in here is the area that of the plates that are heated, okay. Then that will be equal to the thermal conductivity multiplied by the temperature difference between the bottom plate with the top plate, okay, and divided by the distance of the plate. So the distance of the plate from the top to the bottom is capital Y. Okay, so I mean, when we know that this Q divided by A is proportional to the temperature difference divided by the space, then that will be a particular constant that appears. So the particular constant that appears is called K. Okay, and note that this equation 1 is only valid if we have a sufficiently small values of delta T. Okay, so it's in a way, it's also similar with your Newton's law of viscosity. Okay, so the difference in terms of the velocity should be quite small in order for this temperature to in order for this relation to be valid. Okay, now this equation 1, we can convert it into the differential term or differential form. So as the slab thickness is approaching 0, then let's say that this heat is going in the y directions. Okay, so if we go into the picture in here, then there is a difference. The heat flux is going into this direction because there is a temperature gradient in that particular direction, right? So that this subscript in here will correlate with the distance in here. Okay, so the temperature difference will be, you have to have a temperature difference in order for you to have a heat conductions in that particular direction. Okay, and then the same thing with this minus again. This minus is the same thing. So the temperature increases in the directions of top to the bottom, but the heat is going in the directions of the bottom to the top, right? So meaning that your heat conduction directions is opposite to the directions where the temperature increases. So that's what it means by the negative in here, right? So then I think this will be easier because as you can see that in momentum transport we have a tensor. We have a tensor form, and then in here we only have a vector form basically, right? Because we don't have two directions. In the momentum transport, we have the directions of the momentum, and we also have the directions of the momentum transport. And those two are different, so we have to have a tensor basically, right? Now, the constant K in here is called the thermal conductivity basically in here, yeah. And then if you see that this one is physically, then you can put it pictorially, then it will be heat slides downhill on the temperature versus distance graph. Now I have to explain these things again, so I will move on into the next one. You can then extend for that, instead of just y, you can extend it to the 3 directions. So x, the heat conductions in the x directions, the heat conductions in the z directions as well. Okay, then we can also express this equation 3, 4, and 5 into the equation 6. And in deriving this equation 6, we assume that the heat transport is isotropic. So the material has no preferred direction, so that the heat is conducted with the same thermal conductivity in all directions. If in some cases where this is not true, so for example, in y directions will be the thermal conductivity will be higher than the thermal conductivity in the x directions, or the thermal conductivity in the z directions, for example, will be higher than the thermal conductivity in the x directions, then we can express in terms of the equation 7. Okay, so this equation 7 will come up with this particular thermal conductivity called a thermal conductivity tensor, because we need to account for the difference in terms of the thermal conductivity, okay, in different directions. So it has been shown that, for example, for the polymeric liquids in the shearing flow, the thermal conductivity may increase above the equilibrium value by 20% in the x direction and decrease by 10% in the z direction. Okay. Hi Gladys, how are you doing? Then another possible generalization of equation 6 is to include the term containing the time derivative of the Q multiplied by a time constant. Okay, and this comes from the analogy with the Maxwell model of linear viscoelasticity. So this one comes from the momentum transport. Okay. However, all the equations that you derive has to fit the real physical condition. So if you tested that equation and it does not describe the data that you get in the lab or from your observation, meaning that that particular modeling and that particular mathematical model will not be valid. Okay, because every mathematical models need to be validated against the experimental phenomena, right? Now, you will notice that in the momentum transport you have this form in here, whereas in here you only have this form in here. So the x in here refers to the momentum directions or the velocity directions, so it's Vx, and then this y in here refers to the directions of the momentum transport. So this one is transported across the y. Okay, in here we only have this vector terms in here, which meaning that if you have the temperature gradient over the y distance, then you will have this qy. Okay, but the similarity in these two things is that k is also of characteristic of your material. Okay, and then this mu is also characteristic of your material, and both are dependent on the temperature and pressure. If you make it into a three-dimensional transport, then you will get that this equation in here is the one that basically describe your generalized Newton's law of viscosity, whereas this term in here is the one that basically describe your Fourier's law of heat conduction. So in this case, you can see that this is much more simplified than this particular term in here, because you notice that the energy is a scalar, whereas the momentum is a vector. Okay, Q becomes a vector with three components, whereas the momentum flux in here is tau is a second order tensor with 9 components, right? Now, in the previous momentum transport, we also talk about the momentum diffusivity or the kinematic viscosity, right? So now if you see in here that we have the same constant with the same unit with the momentum diffusivity. Is called a thermal diffusivity, or it's called alpha. Alpha is K divided by rho Cp, and Cp in here is the capacity at constant pressure. Okay, the circumflex in here indicates per unit mass. You may also have something else again, and that will, if you have the tilde in here, then you will have that called the per mole. Okay, the thermal diffusivity in here has the same dimension as the kinematic viscosity, so it will be length square per time. Okay, so sometimes you can divide or you can compare between V and alpha. Okay, and this ratio of the V over alpha indicates the relative ease of momentum and heat transport in flow systems. Okay, so it's called the Prandtl number. So this, if you divide by this V divided by alpha, then you will have a dimensionless number because this V has the same unit with this alpha in here, right? So now we go into the thermal conductivity magnitude, like like what I have gone through with you on the week 2. So as you can see in here, you can sort of show the thermal conductivity. Okay, so there is a difference in terms of the thermal conductivity relationship for the gas and the liquid. For the gas, for example, in here, the thermal conductivity will increase with increasing temperature. Okay, for the liquid, on the other hand, that will decrease with increasing temperature. Okay, and this can be described the same way with that we discussed the viscosity as well. And then you can see that the thermal conductivity is quite different. So for example, for gas, it's considered small. For the liquid, it's a bit higher. And it will be higher for the liquid metal. And then you also have solid that have a very high thermal conductivity. But also for some of the solid that serve as an insulator, then of course the thermal conductivity will be very low. Okay. So up to this point, you need to be able to have a feeling of your of the magnitude of the thermal conductivity between the liquid, between the gas, and between the solid. And then in similar way, like what I told you again, the Prandtl number is the relative ease of momentum and heat transport. So the momentum transport comes in the numerator, whereas the heat transport term comes in the denominator. So you can see that in here, in the Prandtl number is less than 1, meaning that the heat transport will be more dominant in the gas, right? And then if you see in here, the Prandtl number is above 1, meaning that the momentum transport will be much more easy with respect to the heat transport, right? And then you can also see again in here that the Prandtl number is less than 1, okay? And then in here, we don't have the Prandtl number, but this Prandtl number is basically showing you the basically a rough approximations of the relative ease of the momentum transport with respect to the heat transport in here. So many things you can see from the tables in here, and if you refer back to the book, and you can basically reflect much more things about these things that are that will give you an insight into the behavior of the different materials. Now, like the momentum transport, we use the conservative law a lot. So for the conservative law in here is expressed by the equations 10, because we are dealing with the heat transport in here. In momentum transport, we are interested with the microscopic level of the system. So we take into account the convective transport, the molecular transport, I mean the rate of the energy in by the convective transport, in and out by the convective transport, the rate of energy in and out by molecular transport, as well as the work. If the work is done, then the sign will be plus. If the work, done on the system, if the work done by the system, it will be negative. If the work done on the system again by the external forces, then it will be positive. And then if there is any energy generated within the system, then that will also be added into the system, then that will be plus. Okay? So, now, in the heat transport, we come across this concept called the combined energy flux factor. So the first term in here is called the convective energy flux. Okay? As you can see in here, that you need to have a velocity in here. Okay? Because if you have a convective contributions, meaning that there will be a velocity. Okay? And then also there will be the rate of the doing work per unit area by molecular mechanisms that also involve a velocity. And then you also have the term that is associated only with the heat conductions. So there is the velocity term does not come in here. 11 can be converted, the equation 11 can be converted to equation 12. Note that in equation 12 in here we come with enthalpy, whereas in equation 11 in here it comes with the internal energy. Okay, and then in equation 11 we come by the combined shear stress, okay, whereas in here we come up with the shear stress only in here, right? What's the difference between these pi terms with this tau term is that the pressure. Okay, so the pressure is incorporated in here, but in here there is no more pressure again in here. Okay, and the equation 12 is the one that are used much more with respect to equation 11. Okay, up to here, is everything clear for everybody? Is there anything else that I need to explain to you guys up so far? Before I move into the next slides, all good, all clear? Now this table in here is basically showing you all the contributions. So this final terms in here, which one is the triangle upside down? Jonathan, is it in this slide 15? Or is this slide 6? Where is the slide 6? Let me check. Oh, this one is just a derivative. Okay, this is just a derivative term. So this one will reflect that it will be equal to all of this combined together. So this will be equal to del over del. So this, if I expand this one, then this one will be equal to del t over del x plus del t over del y plus del t over del z. Okay, so this is if you want to check these terms in more detail, you can have a look into this this bird book. Okay, you can have a look into this bird book, and that will be explained much more in here. It's called diff. I think if I'm not wrong, that particular term is called diff. Right? I can show it in here. I think it's not wrong. Hopefully, I still have it in here. Then that particular term is called diff, and that also comes in your momentum transport as well. Wait, I don't know why my computer is a bit slow. So this one is in here. So this is the upside down triangle. Okay. So this term in here will be equal to this del t over del x plus del t over del y plus del t over del z. Okay. You can check it also on the part 1 momentum transport. Okay, in here. I think they also describe about this diff in here, in order for you to get. I think they no longer discuss that in the heat transport again, because they assume that it will already be clear in the chapter 1. Let me check where it comes in here. It's called a diff in there. So you have to go a bit slow because I also forget where they put that diff in here, but I do remember that there is a diff in here. Okay, it's used a lot in a physical subject, I think. So let me go up in the molecular. Does it appear in here or not? Does it appear in here? The diff? No, I think it's somewhere in this chapter. Let me check that one. I think it's supposed to be somewhere in here, if not wrong. Okay, I think you can check it yourself. But see, these things in here. Okay, so these things in here is called the diff. Okay, it comes out a lot in here. So if you see these terms in here, this upside down triangle, this will be equal to these terms in here, right? And then these terms in here will be equal to this term in here. Okay, I hope that thing will be clear for you. But look, there is a fine difference in here. Okay, so this diff multiplied by V, as you can see that the subscript have the same. So this is X, this is X, this is Y, this is Y, this is Z, this is Z. Okay, whereas this diff factor in here, they will have a different subscript. So this one is J, this is I, this is I, this is J. Okay, so you want to this is called the divergence of the velocity factor. So if you go back into your slide in here, so because we don't have any directions in here, so I think that should be okay that we just put it like this. Okay, I mean a momentum transport factor is a bit more complicated than the heat transport. So the heat transport in here is that it's much less. So we don't have a difference in terms of the dot and if we just use this diff directly as in this term. Okay, I think that will answer your questions very clearly, I think, Jonathan. Okay, so now if I go ahead with these terms in here, okay, the convective transport of energy, the molecular transport and the molecular work terms were previously shown in equation 11 and table 9.8.1. Now there is the energy production term in equation 10. So the energy production term in equation 10 in here can come from a different sources. So what are those sources? It can come from the degradation of electrical energy into heat. It can also come as the heat produced by the slowing down of neutrons or nuclear fragments liberated in the fission process, or it can also come from a viscous dissipation. Viscous dissipation meaning that there is an element of the velocity that is involved. Okay, where some of the frictions from the fluid elements will be converted into the heat. Okay, and also it can also come from the chemical reactions. The equation 10 is actually a statement of the first law of thermodynamics written for an open system at steady state conditions. Okay, after equation 10 has been written as what you do in your momentum transport, then you reduce the thickness of your slab to 0. Okay, then we can evaluate the constant that you get after you integrate the particular differential equations by the use of the boundary conditions. So the most common type of the boundary conditions is that the temperature may be specified at the surface. Okay, and then the heat flux normal to a surface may also be given. Or at the interface, you must have a continuity of the temperature and the heat flux. And also another one that is common is also called the Newton's law of cooling in here, where you have an interface between the solid and the fluid. It can be a solid and a gas, or it can be a solid and liquid, where the heat flux component can be related to the difference between the solid surface temperature and the bulk fluid temperature. Okay, and this equation 13 is normally not called really a law, but it's actually an empirical relationship. And then the H in here is called the heat transfer coefficients. So we will discuss these boundary conditions one by one in the following example. So now, the first example that we will discuss in here is already given into your canvas, and this example is called the heat conductions with an electrical source. So you imagine that there is an electric wire of circular cross section with radius r. So from the center line in here to the outer surface of this cable, we define it as r. Okay, and then we have also an electrical conductivity Ke ohm per ohm per centimeter. Okay, and through this wire, as you can see that all the wires have a cylindrical shape, right? Basically, there is an electric current with the current density of I ampere per centimeter square flows. Okay, so sometimes when you have this kind of the electrical current that flows through your cable, then you also have an irreversible process. So some of it may be converted into heat. Okay, especially if you have a very large cable, and you can feel that it's hot when the when the power is very high. So for example, when the current that you put through that cable is very high, then you will notice that it may get hot with time. Okay, so the rate of the heat production per unit volume is given by the expression of this. So it's called the rate of the heat production per unit volume, meaning that what I will guess is that this have to have a unit of the joule per second per meter cube or per centimeter cube, right? Something like this will be what I expected. So what I did in here is just conversions of the unit to recheck that this is really correct. So if I converted everything, then I can confirm that this is correct, that joule per centimeter cube second. So it is very important for you guys to not just trusting the book or trusting my calculations, but rather you need to check and confirm by yourself whether that is correct or not. Now, as in all the cases for the transfer phenomena, you need to go back into your system, you draw your system, okay, and then you need to show where the shell elements of your the shell elements is, and then you need to also show in where is the rate of the heat conductions in and out. Okay, so for this particular case, we only consider the heat by conduction, because in a solid there will be no movement. So if I go back into this equation in here, okay, into this equation 12, the velocity will be 0 because there will be no velocity, there is no movement of anything. So this term will disappear, it becomes 0. The second term as well, there is no velocity because the solid does not move, right? So we only have the conduction term in here, which is this last term in equation 12. Okay, so the way that we derive these things is that we assume that the length of the cable is much longer with respect to its radius. So the heat conduction is only going in the directions of radial direction, right? So if the heat conduction is going in the air directions, meaning that the temperature difference will appear in the air direction. So we are taking the thickness of the shell in the R direction. Okay, so the shell thickness should have a thickness of the delta R. Okay, we only have heat after we draw the shell elements in here with the thickness of delta R. Then we can start on putting in the heat in by conductions, the heat out by the conductions. Okay, and then we can start on putting in everything QR at R, QR inspected at R plus delta R. Okay, and then note that we also have a unit at the heat production term related with the electrical heating. Okay, so once we put that thing in, we know that the rate of the heat in a cross cylindrical surface at R, or something that is related with this one, will be 2 pi RL QR at R. Okay, so the cylindrical surface in here is correspond to the 2 pi R, and then when you multiply it with the height of L, then you will have this 2 pi RL. Okay, then when you merge it all together, then that will be equal to this term inspected at R. Now, the rate of the heat out across cylindrical surface at R plus delta R is the surface that you take at this particular point in here. Okay, that refers to this particular heat out by conduction. Okay, if you get it correctly like this, then you need to know that you need to multiply the correct surface area in here. So this is called 2 pi R plus delta R because the surface that you are referring to is this particular surface in here at R plus delta R. It's different with 2 pi R. Okay, so you have to take into account this one, and then you can also convert it everything into this term inspected at R plus delta R. This is because R inspected at R plus delta R is equal to R plus delta R. Okay, I hope I go very slow in here so that everybody can understand that R is different with R plus delta R. But R inspected at R plus delta R is basically equal to R plus delta R. Okay. and you can look at my notes in here, so I don't need to explain these things again. Once you manage to figure out these three terms in here, what you did is you put into this term in here will simplify into this term in here, then this term in here will become this term in here. Okay, then I just move this, I just leave this term in here, and I move these two terms into the right hand side, then I can get this term in here. Note that in here you cannot separate this R term with the QR, because this QR is dependent on R. So if you just divide it, if you take out this thing, then you will not get the correct equations. So even if you can take out this 2 pi and then L by dividing them out, this R with QR is an integral term, because this QR depends on the R. Okay, so you cannot, you have to lump them together in here. Okay, if you do this thing correctly, then you will get that your the first ordinary differential equation, d over dr of this RQR is equal this SE multiplied by R. Okay, and then this SE in here is a constant. So what you can do is you can integrate them directly. In the next example, I think that I will discuss in tomorrow drop-in session, is that SA in here is also an effect, also on a functions of the R. So that will be a slightly bit more complicated. Now, once we get these things in here, now we want to find out the value of the C1. So then we can use the boundary conditions. The first boundary conditions is at R equal R, your heat QR is supposed to be finite. So at this center line in here, your Q cannot be infinite, because if it is infinite, then that will be wrong, because there is nothing infinite in terms of the real nature. So nobody can have an infinite money. Okay, well, I mean, they can have very, very, very large amount of money, but there is no such thing as infinite. Okay, so what you can see is that if at R equals 0, then the QR should be finite. So by this sake of the conditions that you need to fulfill the real conditions, then this C1 should be equal to 0. As a result, then your QR will be equal to half SER, right? Then now what you can do is, now you can substitute your Newton's law of Fourier's. Your Newton's law of Fourier is described in terms of this QR is equal minus K dt over dr. You plug it in here, then you can integrate again in here. Then you have another boundary conditions. Your another boundary conditions is that R equal R, your temperature is equal T0. Okay, so you are talking about the outer circumference of your cable, right? Once you get that thing, then you find that your C2 is equal this. Okay, so then once you put it in, your temperature will be equal to this terms in here. Then now you can get your maximum temperature rise. What is your maximum temperature rise? Your maximum temperature is at R equal 0. Then if you are like me, you want to be sure that why this temperature maximum is at R equals 0, then you will check one by one. So you will check that at R equals 0, your T is equal this. At R equal a quarter of R, your T is equal these things. So this 15 over 16 of this mean that this will be lower than these terms in here, right? You agree with me? These terms in here will be lower than this term in here. Then I continue again. I check that R equal half R. I will get these terms in here, 12 over 16 of this. So this term in here will be lower compared with this term in here, which is lower compared to this term in here, right? And then I can also check at R equal 3/4 of R. That will give me 7 over 16, and this term in here will be lower than this term in here, which is lower than this term in here, which is lower than this term in here, right? Then you can do the same with the R as well. So when you do it the same with the R, then that will be basically equal to the T0. right? Because if you put in R in here, then this term will be 1, and then 1 minus 1 will be equal to 0. So this T will be equal to T naught. So it's clear that as you go from the center line to the outer cylinder, the temperature will decrease, right? And you can also, if you choose, you can also try to draw it in your system in here as well, like the way that we do it for your momentum transport. Now, what will be your average temperature rise? Your average temperature rise will be this, in the same way that you do this thing. You integrate from 0 to 2 pi. You integrate from 0 to R, and then you multiply it by the R, dr, d phi. Okay, if you do it like this, then you know that this T minus T naught term is basically dependent on the R and dr. So these three terms have to be lumped together, and then you can split it into another integral, because this d phi does not depend on the R. You do it the same for the denominator and the denominator. As you go through the derivations carefully by yourself, you will get these terms for your numerator, and then these terms for your denominator. Then you will get this term, SER squared divided by 8K. You notice that the average temperature rise is half that maximum temperature rise. Okay, so this one is sort of the same way that you do it for your average velocity and with respect to the maximum velocity. Then the other quantity that you can get is the heat outflow at the surface for a length L of wire. So this will be equal to the 2 pi RL, which is the outer circumference surface in here, multiplied by the heat flux at R equal R. After you do this, then you know that this one is equal to the pi RL multiplied by the SE. Then this means that at the steady state, all the heat produced by the electrical dissipation in the volume pi R square L must live through the surface R equal R. Okay, so up to this point, I think this is where I will wrap up this first drop-in sessions. So what we have discussed is that we have gone through the concepts of the heat transport, and then what are the Fourier's law of heat conductions, and then we also go through the heat balance or energy balance, and then we also discuss our first example. And I think you can see that this will be much more. I think this is a much more simple with respect to the momentum transport. Okay, so before I conclude this drop-in session, is there any questions from anybody? So from Evangeline, from Tiara, from Sarina, Jonathan, Kusal, Denier, or Gladys? Any questions? All clear from my explanations? Anything that you want to ask regarding anything that we have discussed from the week 1 until week 5? So, you guys ready for next week take-home test 1? Really, yeah? No questions, huh? I welcome anything if you want. If there is nothing, then I will stop here, and I think so you can go to your lunch, and then I also can have a bit of rest before moving into my next task. Okay, no problem then. Thank you everybody. I'll stop the recording in here, and then any questions, then you can ask me.